I don't know who it is that needs to hear this tonight. I'm sure that there is someone who needs to hear what I'm about to share with you. I'm going to have to tell you a little bit about my own personal situation, though, in order for you to understand what it is I have to share with you. Me being a weak-minded, flesh-minded, a flesh and blood human being, just a man, just a breath on this earth. I sometimes I allow myself to get caught up in things that are, for one, are out of my control, and for two, things that I don't need to be caught up in. Whether they're out of my control or not, I don't need to give the kind of thought that I give to them. I don't celebrate the holidays. I haven't for a while now. But that doesn't change. I still deal with the pressure of them. I'm a contractor, I guess you could say, and so what I do, I work for individual customers. I don't work for a 9 to 5. I work for people, homeowners that hire me to do work for them. So every year about this time, it's, after Christmas, the holidays, it gets, work gets slow, and not just that, but I have children, my son, and, he sees the other children getting all these big lavish gifts and stuff for the holidays, and he's a far more understanding than what I thought he would be, and what I see a lot of children be towards that whole deal. So Abba has blessed me when it comes to that, for sure. But it's still, even though he would never say anything, I still feel it. I feel that pressure. And I know that there's probably a lot of you that will hear this know exactly what I'm talking about. But as far as like my finances go, I've been trying to do what the Most High, asked me to do. I've been trying to live my life for Him and not for the dollar, for the fortune and the fame, if you will. So, but every once in a while, and there's been a few years in the last few years where it seems to happen around this time, right after the holidays, when people are a little more tight with their money and it's harder. At work just ain't coming like it was last summer and all fall, and so now things are getting a little tight, and it weighs more on my mind because jobs just aren't coming in and people just ain't, pulling out the checkbook to pay me. So it's a little tighter. And me being me, number one, of all epicry, I get stressing, and I know that there's probably a lot of people that are in that boat right now because it's after the holidays. I'm sure there's a lot of people that they've been given a lot of their thought to finances, even if they got plenty of dough in the bank, and they don't they're not sweating, but I'm sure even those who aren't sweating, they still give too much thought to what's in their pocketbook and what ain't. So I'm sure there's someone who needs to hear what I'm about to tell you. Please listen. It seems like any stress that I do have, any stress that I've had has come from money, one way or the other. I haven't had any stress about relationships. I haven't had any stress about anything. It's came from money. Anytime I've had stress that I've allowed to come up into my life, it's come from how much money that I don't have. And then there's a lot of times when, like throughout the summer and stuff, my work's kind of seasonal. I still work even though it's wintertime. When I'm doing good and everything, it's like I don't, I'm not worried about it. But when it gets to be around January and February, it does get a little tight for a little bit. But I'm not going to think for a moment that the Most High doesn't have something, if not a lot, to do with it. Because as long as we're on this earth, we will be tested. And, he's not done with us yet. There's still a lot of dross, a lot of impurities that are in our lives that needs to be removed. I'm going to read Luke 12 right here to you. And notice how the Messiah deals with greed. And if Messiah didn't say the words the way he does here in Luke 12, one might try to say that it ain't greed, that it was just worry, that someone was worrying. But let me tell you, it all comes from the same place, and it's all the same thing. You just like love and marriage, you can't have one without the other. You can't have worrying over how much money you don't have without it being of greed. It is of greed. Because if we worry about what we're going to eat or wear or drive or where we'll sleep, when he always takes care of us. I mean, I can't remember the last time laying out on the ground sleeping. I mean, do you? When was the last time you had to sleep out just on the ground with nothing on your body, with no food in your belly? I don't think there's anybody that's going to say, oh yeah, I do it all the time. And if they do, they probably choose that life. They probably could, make a living some way or the other. But for the most part, those of us who have had financial worries and we've allowed them to dictate some things in our life and put us in certain moods, I'm sure that none of us who will hear this have had to sleep out bucket naked on the ground with nothing to eat, starving for days upon on days. It's just not. It's not true. It's not. That's something that's not happening. And these homeless people and stuff that are out here living, under a bridge and stuff, a lot of those people are drug addicts. They choose that life. They like that life. That's what they want to do. So those of us who've had financial stress that was unnecessary, I'm sure we ain't been out under a bridge because That's all we got. It's just not true. But watch how Messiah handles this, and from there, I'm going to share with you what I know. I know there's some of you, maybe all of you, that need to hear this. Verse 1. Meanwhile, when an innumerable crowd of people had gathered together so that they trampled one another, he began to say to his taught ones, first, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. Hypocrisy. And whatever is concealed shall be revealed, and whatever is hidden shall be known. So the reason he says whatever is concealed shall be revealed, whatever is hidden shall be known, it's that hypocrisy. It's the Pharisees are those, the Pharisees he was talking about were the people that were telling his taught ones, telling people what they need to do and shaming them for what they do, and acting like they need to do better, that they're not saved, or they're going to hell or whatever, when what they were doing was probably, and more than likely was, a lot worse than those people they were talking smack about were doing. And so it will be revealed. And then what are you going to think? That's another thing. It's like the part of the reason I'm telling you this, and what it is that I want to share with you, that I know most of you need to hear, just like I needed to hear it. A lot of that stress over the finances, over what money I don't have, comes from what people are going to think, from what my family's thinking. I'm sure that the second someone who knows what I'm doing, who knows my story, the second one of those people finds out that I'm struggling financially, they will, or that I think I'm struggling financially, they will say, oh, see, we knew this day would come. We knew he would hit rock bottom and blah, 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 or something, just whatever it is that they would have to, that they're saying. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. So that gets to stressing me sometimes, because I don't want people to worry about me, for one, and I don't want, I'm an epic dumbass. You know what I mean? This is what I get thinking. So if there was anything the Most High has given me that they could use, they'll disregard it completely because of my financial situation. That's the first thought on my mind. I'm just being honest. Every time that something like January and February rolls around or something, and the money ain't flowing or something, and I have car issues or whatever, I know that someone's going to completely forget anything I ever said, and that's fine. But that is my biggest worry, is that if there was something that I've said that people could use, I mean, because that is the name of the game. That's what we're supposed to be doing, right? We're supposed to be out here in the field as harvest workers. And the Messiah is going to tell you how our money has got nothing to do with the work, the real work that we have to do, that we should have been doing, and that we need to be doing. And there's always going to be Pharisees that are going to be pointing the finger, and they don't have 4 fingers pointing back at themselves. But they need about 100 of them pointing back at themselves. if they're going to be pointing one at us, right? So whatever it is, whatever, if someone's saying, oh yeah, he thinks he's been doing this and he knows the Most High, why is he broke? That is the majority of the Christians' thought process. Why wouldn't he have a new house and a new vehicle like the rest of us, right? And you're going to want to hear what I got to tell you. Trust me. And it doesn't matter, regardless, if you have a new house and a truck, you definitely want to hear this. And just as much so, if you're struggling and you're going through a hard time, just like a lot of people are in the world today. This needs to be heard by across the board, by all walks of life. So whatever you have said in the dark shall be heard in the light. And don't forget that. This goes for all of us. Anyone who's pointing fingers, you might not be pointing those 4 fingers back at someone right now, but there's going to come a day when you're going to see a lot of fingers, and the most important finger pointing at you. It's going to happen. And what you have spoken in the ear in inner rooms shall be proclaimed on the housetops. But I say to you, my friends, do not be afraid of those who kill the body and after that are unable to do anymore. So regardless of what anyone thinks or says, I know it's hard. And like I said, my epicry, it flares up. You guys know that. It gets flared up there once in a while. And I lose sight of that, lose track of that fact that they can't do nothing to me. These people that I know my ears are tingling over, they can't, what can they do? They can't, that's all they can do is sit and make my ears tingle. What I don't realize in that moment is why would I spend a second fearing what man can say or do? Because they can't do anything. The Most High is the only one, and the only wage that matters is the one we earn from him. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body and after that are unable to do any more. But I shall show you whom you should fear. Fear the one who, after killing, possesses authority. After killing, keep that in mind, possesses authority to cast into Gehenna. Yes, I say to you, fear him. And this is the Messiah. So I just want to pause right there for a second. I'm going to be honest, I've had a lot of Christians on my mind today, and not just ones I know, just the worldwide Christian community I've had on my mind today, because I know how they are, and I know it's a lot to do with prosperity. I'm not fabricating this. A lot of Christians, when they pray or they ask for prayer or whatever, it's for a financial blessing. It's they send money and they say it's sowing or whatever, however they say, and they're going to have tenfold return back, whatever, all that. It's what the message I have to share with you tonight. It's directly related to that whole mindset. Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 copper coins, and not one of them is forgotten before the Most High? But even the hairs of your head have all been numbered. Do not fear. You are worth more than many sparrows. And that makes me think that those people who would point their finger at you and say, how is he like, okay, if they saw Messiah today, who just left his home and just went off walking with sandals on and probably one change of clothes, and was just out preaching the good news of the gospel. He probably didn't smell very good. His clothes were probably, they probably weren't Gucci. So if people today would see someone like him, they'd say, look at this bum. He's saying he's a Christian, a believer. Well, why is he walking out here, or like that? Why is he walking around here like that? Why don't he have what I have? Look at him. Look at that car he's driving. Oh my gosh. I just feel bad for that guy. You already know. You know what would be happening. So, and listen to what he just said about the sparrows. Do you think those people that would do that, if they had a bird feeder out in their front yard, do you think they look out at the little sparrow and think, man, he's not as good as them other sparrows over there. They're all the same. They have different personality, but they have the same wealth. The riches that one sparrow has is no more or no less than any sparrow in the world, unless he's trapped in a cage and enslaved. Keep that in mind as well. And I say to you, everyone who confesses me before men, the Son of Adam shall also confess him before the messengers of the Most High. And look, I have to tell you right now, we've seen so many times that when it says messengers, I know it says angel a lot of time in a lot of these translations, but we've seen so many times how men are messengers of the Most High. And I can prove it to you. I can prove to you that Malachi is the messenger of the Most High, Habakkuk, Isaiah. So he might be talking about on Judgment Day when you're standing and there's winged beings all around you. That could possibly be true. That's above my pay grade. I don't know. But one thing I do know for sure is the Son of Adam is the Word, is he not? Yes, he is. They don't just call him that because he knowed the Word. He is the Word. He's the Word. What I'm reading here, if we go back to the prophets, any of that word of truth that's in there, that's the Messiah. That's the right hand. So the Word will confess you before the prophets, because if you're not doing what the prophets were told to tell you to do, it's like he's pointing you out, he's setting you out, he's saying, look, this is what I say, I'm the Word, this is what I say, and look what they're doing. It's confessing you in front of the messengers, so don't forget that. But he that has denied me before men shall be denied before the messengers of the Most High. Same concept. If you deny what has been told, declared to the prophets that you are supposed to hear and adhere to, if you deny that, the truth's going to deny you to the Most High. It's as plain and simple. If the word of the Most High told you to walk 100 yards in that direction and you don't, there you go. The word has judged you because you were supposed to walk 100 yards, and the fact that you haven't proves that you've denied the word. Therefore, you've denied the Son of Adam. It's as simple as 1, 2, 3. And everyone who shall speak a word against the Son of Adam, it shall be forgiven him. But to him who has blasphemed against the set apart Spirit, it shall not be forgiven. And this is key right here in this message that I have to share with you. And I know you guys have read that. You know what it means to blaspheme the set apart Spirit, right? And no, for anyone who doesn't know, no, it's not me talking about someone who says they're speaking in tongues that are babbling or flopping on the floor. No, We know the set-apart spirit is the set-apart spirit of truth. It guides us and leads us into what? Into all truth. So if you encounter the set-apart spirit of truth that leads and guides you to all truth, that's trying to guide you, and you talk smack about that, and you say, that's not true, that's a lie, it's not going to be forgiven you. You know why? Because that truth was there to lead and guide you to all truth, which will set you free to where you're not like a caged sparrow that's being abused. The truth opened the cage door. If you go up and shut it, well, you're going to stay in captivity and abused, and you will die. You won't be forgiven. The Most High is not going to strive with you forever. He's not going to keep up. He's not going to keep walking up to the cage and opening the door when you don't want to come out. He's going to leave you there with whatever psychopath is abusing you, because he's not just going to keep. He's not going to beg you. And when they bring you to the congregations and rulers and authorities, do not worry about how or what you should answer or what you should say, for the set-apart spirit shall teach you in that very hour what you should say. Now, look, he's not going to magically put words into your mouth. The Most High will tell you what to say, but if you ain't reading the word, because look, the set-apart spirit is the spirit of truth that leads and guides you to all truth. What is the truth? It's the word. It's the way. It's the life. So you're going to have to be in the word. Not just any punk off the streets at a Slipknot concert is going to be able to say the right thing. It is going to be there at that spot for the Most High to put those words in his mouth. It's just like love and marriage. Just like I just said, it all goes hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other. You can't be an evil, disrespectful person of the set-apart spirit of truth and live your life out of greed and for your own greed, your own personal greedy gain, and expect to have just the right words thrown in your mouth when you ain't took the time to read this word of truth. It's just not going to happen. That's delusion. We're not talking about, he's talking to his taught ones right now, and to those who are hungry and thirsty and eager to learn the truth. And someone from the crowd said to him, "Teacher, speak to my brother." And look, just I want you to understand that back up here, remember in verse 1 it says, "Meanwhile, when an innumerable crowd of people had gathered together, so that they trampled one another." So, I'm sure you've seen like a concert, like that Travis Scott concert where a bunch of people got trampled. You know what I'm talking about? So just have that in your mind. That's what's going on here. And then he's talking to these people, okay? So they come bum rushing, trampling people down. And this is what one of them had to say. And someone from the crowd said to him, so just imagine this guy, whoever it was that was in the crowd that said this, he come bum rushing with the rest of them, didn't care, trampling people down to get to him. Not like that woman that just wanted to touch his garment to be healed, or like that centurion or whatever that rode across the land because their child was sick and was dying. And the Messiah said, "No, and nowhere in the land have I seen this kind of faith." Not like that. No, watch what this guy says. Said to him, "Teacher, speak to my brother to divide the inheritance with me." But he said to him, "Man, who made me a judge or divider over you?" And he said to them, "Mind and beware of greed, because one's life does not consist in the excess of his possessions." So at the same time, when if you just heard what I just said, you probably are envisioning a like wild stampede of like buffalo type people just coming and just trampling down people to come up. And this guy being, what this guy said, it kind of, it lets you know what the intentions of that crowd was, because if it's to be healed, you're not going to trample people down, you know what I mean, unless it's a dire situation. So the reason we're reading what this guy said is because that was probably the thought process of the majority of that crowd, was they were coming for the miracles and the bread. They came. This guy came running because he wanted him to tell his brother to split his inheritance with him. So his brother wasn't giving him half. And he wanted Messiah to tell his brother what to do with the inheritance. And Messiah said, "Who am I?" He said, and he told the crowd and his taught ones, "Mind and beware of greed, because one's life does not consist in the excess of his possessions." So if you're envisioning like a Travis Scott concert, or like a concert, or like those soccer games when it's over, those college football games, and the crowd rushes the field and they tear the uprights down, the goalpost. If you're picturing that, just picture these Sunday churches, these Christian churches, like a T.D. Jakes congregation, or a Joel Osteen, or a, who's your favorite pastor? Any of them. Just imagine the crowd that goes to that. Yeah, they're not stampeding, but what are they coming there for? What are they coming there for? Are they coming to truly be healed? And they might believe that, but most of those people, the majority, I'm not saying all of them, and I'm not condemning anybody, I'm just speaking the facts. And if you can show me how I'm wrong, then please come tell me. I'm just speaking, and I love you, and I want us to not live this way. I don't want us to live where we would trample others down for anything to do with our greed, with our finances. I don't want us to have that hypocrisy where we point fingers at people for what they don't have compared to what we do have. Our life does not consist in the excess of his possessions. But what's the percentage, you think, of Christianity today that they won't tell you that? They're not going to come out and say that your life consists of your possessions, but at the same time, right out the other side of their neck, they will tell you that. They'll say, well, the Most High ain't blessed him. They'll say the Lord God ain't blessed him. Look what he's doing. He ain't even got a dime to his name, or whatever. Look at the car he's got. Look at the house he's got. His marriage is whatever. His children. They sit and point fingers, and never one time weigh out what that person is doing in the harvest for the kingdom, which should be the only tool of measurement, if anyone's using one. And a lot of people they all got their measuring tapes out, don't they? He then spoke a parable to them, saying, "The land of a certain rich man yielded well. And he was reasoning within himself, saying, What shall I do, because I have no room to store my crops? And he said, I am going to do this, pull down my storehouses and build greater, and store all my crops and my goods there. Then say to myself, Life, you have many goods laid up for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, and rejoice." Life back then, it wasn't much different than life today, was it? That's what's going on in the world right now. They would say, look at that person, they got an old car, or they don't have a nice house like this where they can just come and be comfortable, and they don't have their bills paid where they can just sit back and during these months of February and January, and they think of all the reasons that you're not up to par with them or someone else. And the whole time, what you do for the kingdom, the harvest, the real work, is no part of the equation in their mind. But it's the only equation. And you can't have one with the other. You can only have one without the other. You can't be working for the kingdom and working for your own greedy gain at the same time. It ain't going to work. It can't be. You can't serve two masters. You can't. Because if you're serving the Most High and you're willing to go out in the field as a harvest worker for the rain, spreading the good news, you can't live your life according to the dollar bill, y'all. You just can't do it. But like I said, I'm human. We're all going to have moments of weakness where we're tempted, where we're overwhelmed, where we act out of haste and we don't do what we should be doing. We don't say what we should be doing. Good thing there is forgiveness. And we can turn it around. Right? So that man, in his parable said that, yeah. He's got life made. He got it made in the shade. He's chewing on a hickory twig somewhere like Hank. But the Most High said to him, "You mindless one, this night your life shall be demanded from you." Remember back up there, it said the Most High can kill this life and the next. So just beware that those fingers pointing back at yourself while you got one pointing at someone who's out in the field, it could cost you your life. So that's part of the reason, the motivation of me sharing this message with you. Don't do it. It's hard not to. It's hard to get out of that state of mind to where you're measuring, just like everyone else, you're measuring everyone's life according to their possessions. But in order for us to live, we must. It's a absolute. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We got to throw them measuring tapes down and refuse to use them when we look at other people's life and our own life. We have to only be workers for the harvest, in the field, for the kingdom, for the good news. And who shall own what you have prepared? And that's for anyone who lives that way. All of us. Whatever we have, whatever possessions we have, it's only temporary. We're not taking it nowhere with us. And someone else is going to end up with it. And more than likely, like most people say, well, I want to leave stuff to my kids, my children. It rarely probably works out that way. And it's definitely not and it will never work out for your children's favor, because they'll be just like that guy. They'll be saying, look here, my dad worked his whole life and left me all this. Now I can just kick back and think about all the people that didn't have a dad like me, that ain't got all the ease that I have. They ain't got this hickory twig in their mouth like I do. Right? That's the truth. So is he who is storing up treasure for himself and is not rich towards the Most High? And he said to his taught ones, "For this reason I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you shall eat, nor about the body, what you shall put on. The life is more than the food, and the body is more than the clothing." You know the rest of that story. I'm here to tell you, I'm here to remind you of something you already know the truth to. And it was what I had to be reminded today. And I hope it serves you well. I hope you can use this. If you are, as the world would say, down on your quote-unquote luck right now, as far as finances go, you want to know what the truth is? You can count yourself blessed. Count yourself blessed. The less amount of those pieces of paper that have pyramids and all-seeing eyes on them in your pocketbook, the better off you are. I know it's hard to fathom that. It doesn't seem that way when you're sitting there worrying, beating yourself up, judging, looking, thinking poor you, pity you, whatever the case may be. I mean, we could lay out the list of all the things that come with that, and I mean, we'll be here all night, won't we? But that's death. Life is like those sparrows, like those ravens. They got the jacket, they got the greatest outfit ever designed. They have a unlimited supply of wealth, of food, of clothing. They can never run out. And they're not flying around all day just scratching their head. Do you see any bald sparrows that their hair fell out because they spent years or so much time dwelling on, pondering on how they were going to eat tomorrow, what they was going to feed their chicks? They don't spend a second thinking about that stuff. When they wake up, they fly out of the nest and they go right down to the bottom of the tree if they want. But I'm sure they got their favorite little places. They go get what they need. They come back. Them chicks don't die of starvation, do they? No. The world, we are so wealthy and we got no idea. We ain't got a clue. Look at this verse of the day. It says, this is Jeremiah chapter 29. And you shall seek me, being rich towards the Most High, and shall find me. I got news for you right now. It's a news flash. This is another part of that you need, that I needed to be reminded of, that I'm sure someone needs to be reminded of. If you're seeking the Benjamins, baby, Abba has nothing to do with that. Sure, he gives you something, he feeds you, and he'll take care of you. But if you're seeking those pieces of paper that have all-seeing eyes on them, and that's your concern, you cannot seek the Most High. You might think you are, and most people do. The majority of Christianity, I'm sure that's what they think. But you cannot serve two masters. And where your thoughts, where your devotion is, what type of measuring tool you have in your hand, it can only be for one master or the other. You cannot have it both ways. If you don't put the measuring tool down that has dollar bill signs on the tape, you are not serving the Most High. That's just how it is. It's like the law of gravity. If you throw something up in the air, she's coming back down. You can't defy gravity. You can't defy logic. You can't defy this stuff. That's just how it is. Then you shall call on me, and you shall seek me and shall find me. If you seek him, you'll find him. When you search for me with all of your heart. All of your heart. Now let's get some context here. And these are the words of the letter which Yirmiyahu the prophet sent from Jerusalem to the rest of the elders of the exile, and to the priest, and to the prophets, and to all the people whom Nebuchadnezzar had exiled from Jerusalem to Babel. After Jeconiah the sovereign and the sovereigness mother, and the eunuchs and the heads of Yehuda and Jerusalem, and the craftsmen and the smiths had gone into exile from Jerusalem, but the hand of Elisah, son of Shaphan, and Gemariah, the son of Hilkiah, those guys, the sovereign of Yehuda, sent to Babel to Nebuchadnezzar, the sovereign of Babel, saying, Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Most High Yasharal, to all the exiles whom I exiled from Jerusalem to Babel. He was saying to all these people who got taken into captivity to Babel, they were there. That word is coming to them in Babel. Build houses and dwell in them. Plant gardens and eat their fruit. And you know what the message has been. But back then, he told them, build houses, dwell in them, plant gardens and eat their fruit. Take wives, bring forth sons and daughters. Take wives for your sons and give your daughters to husbands. Let them bear sons and daughters and be increased there and not diminished. And seek the peace of the city where I have exiled you, and pray to Yahuwah for it. For in its peace you have peace. Yeah, you didn't think he would leave them hanging completely out there to dry, would you? For thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Most High Yasharal, let not your prophets and your diviners who are in your midst deceive you, neither listen to the dreams which you are dreaming. For they are prophesying falsely to you in my name. I have not sent them, declares Yahuwah. Now, I know a lot of people might be thinking, yeah, see, you've been telling us that we got to come home, and that's probably what you're thinking right now. Well, hold that thought. Put a pin in it. I know. I would be thinking the same thing. For thus said Yahuwah, when 70 years are completed at Babel, I shall visit you and establish my good word towards you. My good word towards you. To bring you back to this place. To bring you back to this place. For I know the plans I am planning for you, declares Yahuwah, plans of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and an expectancy. Then you shall call on me and shall come and pray to me, and I shall listen to you, and you shall seek me and shall find me when you search for me with all your heart. That's the only way. That's the only way you're going to find him. I don't care. The delusion is thick, isn't it? Because there's all kinds of quote-unquote believers that have their measuring tape out that measures theirs and everyone else's life according to the Benjamins. Not the tribe of Benjamin, but the Franklin, whatever his name is, Benjamin, those pieces of paper that have everything demonic and satanic on it. But they're not anyone's measuring what someone's doing for the Most High and his kingdom, the harvest. And I shall be found by you, declares Yahuwah, and I shall turn back your captivity and shall gather you from all the nations and from all the places where I have driven you, declares Yahuwah. And I shall bring you back to the place from which I have exiled you. Because you have said, Yahuwah has raised up prophets for us in Babel. Thus said Yahuwah concerning the sovereign who sits on the throne of David, concerning all the people who dwell in this city, and concerning your brothers who have not gone out with you into exile. Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, see, I am sending on them the sword, the scarcity of food, and the pestilence. And see, this isn't money. He's not talking about money. He's talking about the reason the Christians and the world measure like that. It's because of the sword he sent on them. The scarcity of the real food. A man doesn't live by bread alone, but every word that proceeds out the mouth of Abba Yahuwah. Right? And if you don't have that, that sword's on you, and pestilence. And I shall make them like spoilt figs, so spoilt as to be uneatable. And you know about the fig tree parable, the vineyard, the fig tree. It all represents his children in their dwelling place, his dwelling place, living truly prosperous. And I shall pursue them with the sword, with scarcity of food, with pestilence, and I shall make them a horror among all the range of the earth. They're a horror among all the range of the earth. And you want to know how that's true? How many reigns on the earth do you think Christians dwell in? What's the percentage? Well, let's just think about it for a second. America is primarily Christian, is it not? And it has been. China, there's Christians there. Russia, primarily, it's that Eastern Orthodox Christianity. Europe, there's Christian. Look at all the missionary work that's went on in Africa. Look at Australia. Look, I mean, what country isn't there a big chunk of Christians dwelling in it? There's not many. I don't think there's any. Is there? I mean, you go to Alaska, you go to Iceland, you can go any place in the world. There's a lot of Christians there. He says, I shall make them a horror among all the range of the earth. This is something that not too many people think about. And it's a 1,000,000,000% true. 1,000,000,000% accurate. And there's going to be a lot of fingers pointing at me when I say these words I'm about to say. A lot of those Christians would point their finger at me. But what I'm about to say is the truth. They're going to point them at me because of the truth I speak. And not one will go to search to see if this is the truth or not. It's just they're going to point their fingers because it's what they're doing. The majority of those Christians, they all celebrated Christmas just now, didn't they? Which causes those rulers to come out. But that's not what I'm talking about. How many of them Christians are going to just hear me out when I tell them that it's 1,000,000,000% fact that that Christmas tree represents the tree of the knowledge of good and evil that caused the curse to come about on the whole earth. And it won't take anyone who truly is seeking the Most High with all their heart to see that that's the truth. If you look at what that tree did, you'll see that everything that these holidays, that these Christians do, it is a product of that tree's doctrine, of what that tree did. They might as well be right in the garden with Adam and Eve, eating that tree when they celebrate these holidays. But that tree directly represents, that's what that tree represents. That's why it was made. Yes, it represents a phallic symbol, but more importantly, the reason those balls are on there, it's the same as the Kabbalah tree, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That's what it is. But most Christians most of them won't hear what I just said. They probably went, turn the video off right there. And they say that that's not true. But let me prove it to you real quick. The Most High tells you not to celebrate Christmas. All through his words. He says, don't cut a tree down and put it in your house and to where it won't topple. He says this. Don't put gifts under it. Don't do as the heathens do. But what does the Christians do? They do it and they say, that's not why they try to tell you and they justify why they do it. So this right there, that will prove to you what the tree in the garden was. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They believe, they know what's good and what's evil. Even though the Most High is telling them that tree, doing that's evil and it's a curse, the Christians are saying, no, it ain't. I don't care what that word says. You know, it used to be that they would read from the Old Testament, but they didn't do nothing the Old Testament that said, basically, because they believed that because the Messiah came, that they only have to actually adhere to what the New Testament says. But nowadays, they don't even adhere to what it says. They do what they want to do. They believe, they know what's good and what's evil. It's so simple. It's as simple as 1, 2, 3, my baby. It don't get no easier than that. And you can narrow it down to the most simplest solution to find out if what I'm saying is true or not. How many of those Christians who just heard what I just said will even go look to see if what I said is true? They won't, will they? They'll run. They'll slam. They'll touch that dial. So they're not seeking the matters of the Most High. They're not seeking kingdom matters. They're not seeking the Most High with all their heart. They're refusing the Most High with all their heart. They're seeking the dollar bill with all their heart. They're seeking what you got and what they got, what they ain't got, what you ain't got. That's what they're seeking. And am I saying that to beat them up? No, I'm sharing this with y'all in hopes that someone who needed to hear this heard it, and they can see the error in that. And they can start to live their lives like those sparrows and those ravens and lose. How could what I'm saying be negative in any way? If you can drop all that stress and all that worry, put down your fingers, lower them, and start to live your life like those sparrows and them ravens, you know how blessed you'll be. You know, I don't have to explain it to you. You know what your life would look like without all that stress and worry, which is vanity. You you think about it all the time. You think about, man, if I just didn't have this much stress. You don't have to have it. You don't have to. If the birds can fly out of their nest and have everything they want at their fingertips in abundance, you got more than that, my friend. More. Far more. For they did not heed my words, declares Yahuwah, which I sent to them by my servants the prophets, rising up early and sending them, yet you did not listen, declares Yahuwah. You therefore hear the word of Yahuwah, all you exiles whom I have sent from Jerusalem to Babel. Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Most High of Yasharal, concerning Ahab, son of Kaliah, and Zedekiah, son of Maaseiah, who are prophesying falsely to you in my name. See, I am giving them into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, sovereign of Babel, and he shall strike them before your eyes. And because of them, all of the exiles of Yehuda who are in Babel shall use a curse, saying, Yahuwah, make you like Zedekiah and Ahab, whom the sovereign of Babel roasted in the fire. Because they have done wickedness in Yasharal and committed adultery with their neighbors' wives, and have spoken a word in my name falsely, which I have not commanded them, and I am he who knows and a witness, declares Yahuwah, and speak to Shemaiah the Neelamite, saying, Thus speaks Yahuwah of hosts, the Most High Yasharal, saying, because you have sent letters in your name to all the people who are at Jerusalem, to Zephaniah, son of Maaseiah, the priest, and to all the priests, saying, Yahuwah has made you priest instead of Yehoiada, the priest, so that there are overseers in the house of Yahuwah over everyone who is mad and makes himself a prophet, that you should put him in the stocks and in the iron collar. So, And keep in mind, this is what he thinks about prophets who prophesy falsely in his name. It's bad. It's bad news. So why have you not reproved Jeremiah of Anathoth, who makes himself a prophet to you? For he has sent to us Babel, saying, this captivity is long. Build houses and dwell in them, and plant gardens and eat their fruit. Was that not true? Was Jeremiah doing something wrong? There was a punishment. They couldn't come back to the land. That's what they had to do. So he wasn't prophesying falsely by the Most High's name. No, he was telling them what the Most High wanted them to do. And Zephaniah the priest read this letter in the hearing of Jeremiah the prophet. Then the word of Yahuwah came to Jeremiah, saying, send to all those in exile, saying, thus said Yahuwah concerning Shemaiah the Nehelamite, because Shemaiah has prophesied to you, and I have not sent him, and he has made you to trust on falsehood. Therefore, thus said Yahuwah, I am bringing punishment upon that guy and his seed, and he shall have no one to dwell among this people, nor is he to see the good that I am about to do for my people. The good that I am about to do for my people, declares Yahuwah, because he has spoken apostasy against Yahuwah. The word that came to Jeremiah from Yahuwah, saying, Thus spoke Yahuwah the Most High of Yasharal, saying, write in a book for yourself all the words that I have spoken to you. For look, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when I shall turn back the captivity of my people, Yasharal and Yehuda, declares Yahuwah. And I shall bring them back to the land that I give to their fathers, and let them possess it. Let them possess it. So, the world believes that he's brought them back to let them possess it, don't they? Sure they do. They believe that in 1948, that when Israel, the state, the Zionist state of Israel was established, they were brought back to possess the land. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. I'm not speaking, this ain't nothing to debate about. That's a fact. The world believes that they returned. Although, at the same time, they believe that they won't return until the rapture, until they're like just spirits floating around out in space, right? That's what they believe. So they believe they've already, that the state, whatever they want to say, has returned. They believe that who he was talking about, that the event that he was talking about has happened, and it happened in 1948. I've heard so many of them say it. They come in on wings of eagles, they say, with them airplanes. Right? Okay. That's what they believe. Is that your story? Are you sticking to it? Okay. And these are the words Yahuwah spoke concerning Yasharal and Yehuda. For this is what Yahuwah said, we have heard a voice of trembling, of fear, and not of peace. Ask now, and see if a man is giving birth. Why do I see every man with his hands on his loins like a woman in labor, and all faces turn pale? Oh, for great is that day. There is none like it, and it is the time of Jacob's distress. But he shall be saved out of it. And it shall be in that day, declares Yahuwah of hosts, that I break his yoke from your neck, and tear off your bonds, and foreigners no more enslave them. Foreigners no more enslave them. And they shall serve Yahuwah, their mighty Most High, and David, their sovereign, whom I raise up for them. Is that what they're doing in that day? That day, apparently to Christianity, that day's already happened. Are they serving the Most High? And you, do not fear, O Jacob, my servant, declares Yahuwah, nor be discouraged, O Yasharal, for look, I am saving you from afar, and your seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return, and have rest, and be at ease, with no one to trouble him. If that happened, is there anyone troubling him? What, is he rest and at ease? Is he? And back up to this, for all men are like women. Did you know that the state of Israel is by per capita, or however you want to, however that is, whatever word is used, they are the most homosexual country in the world. They have the biggest gay pride parades in the world. There right now. They have a hexagram on their flag. They don't serve Yahuwah. Unfortunately, they don't. It's got nothing to do with him. It's secular. Did you know that there's, I've been wanting to say this, but it's kind of hard to say, but have you ever heard of the rape lines before? You know how you hear about them old Saturnalia, which is Christmas parties where, and this is where like the Yuletide and all that stuff comes from, where they would have the temple prostitutes and they would go in there and rape them, have sex with them temple prostitutes. Did you know that there is people who have spoken out, eyewitnesses to those temples, those synagogues, you know what I'm talking about? Where people have seen them raping little boys in lines. Yeah. And I don't have no proof to say that that's true, but I got no proof to say that it ain't true, because I know what is true. I know that that flag is a hexagon, a sexagon. I know that it represents the tree of the knowledge of good and evil that come from the serpent. So I wouldn't put that past all that. I mean, how could you? You would be naive. You'd be a fool, a damn fool, to think that it could never happen, that there's no way. And look at the evidence that's coming out every day about what those guys do. And I'm not condemning all of them. I'm not condemning anybody. I'm just saying what the facts are. If someone says that, if they tell us that they're a homosexual, and then later on we're talking about them and we say, well, he said he was a homosexual, is that us condemning him? No, he said it. That's not me condemning nothing. That's what they are. They openly practice Kabbalah, which practices the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's common knowledge. The only reason people won't believe it is because they deny it. They run from the truth. They're not seeking the Most High with all their heart. They're not. They're seeking their own greedy gain. And they shall serve their Most High and David, their sovereign, whom I raise up for them. And you, do not fear, O Jacob, my servant, declares Yahuwah, nor be discouraged, O Yasharal, for look, I am saving you from afar, and your seed from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return and have rest and be at ease with no one to trouble him. For I am with you, declares Yahuwah, to save you, though I make a complete end of all nations where I have scattered you. Did all nations end? Did I miss something? Did all the other nations have been made a complete end of? That hasn't happened, has it? So therefore, you have to rightly rule. If you want to rule rightly, you have to rule that place out as being the place and the return and the rest and the home. You have to rule it out. It's a fraud. It's a scam. You've been scammed. And guess what? All this stuff that I've been talking leading up to this about, it all comes from there too. It's all connected, and they promote it, they push it. When this happens that we're reading about here, you ain't gonna see no gay pride parades going on through the city. You ain't gonna see no Christmas trees there. You ain't gonna see no swearing falsely by his name, prophesying falsely by his name. You ain't gonna see none of that. You ain't gonna see no nations out here. It's all going to be done. So if you promote and serve, if you back that place and that thing, you're an abomination. That's what you are. He who chooses you is an abomination. It's what we read it all the time. We just read it like the last video. But I shall reprove you in judgment, and by no means leave you unpunished. For thus said Yahuwah, your breach is incurable. Your wound is grievous. Your wound is grievous. This is how you know what the mark of the beast is. Isn't it that grievous wound, right? Yeah. So, living in the land of captivity, in drunkenness, in delusion, that's the mark of the beast, that grievous wound. The only way you don't have that is when you're home where you belong and you're doing what you're supposed to do. And now, you could say that time hasn't come yet for us to do that. That's the only argument you could make right now. All you could say, you cannot say you have to say that place is a lie, it's a scam, that they're not the people, that they are preaching and teaching the doctrine that the serpent taught in the garden. You have to, if you're being honest. I mean, you can keep lying all you want, but I mean, if you're actually being honest, you have to admit that. But now the only argument you have now is that the time hasn't come for us to return. But I'm going to tell you right now, the fact that I'm telling you is the proof that it is time for you to return. And we know that it was 430 years since they were exiled. Do you think 430 years has passed? We know for a fact that it was 430 years. 43. Isn't that a coinky dink? Kind of like the years of a hired man, right? You can only work a hired man 42. And wasn't it funny, all the 43 stuff we seen, like that big golden peg that went around on tour around America was 43 feet long. I read the articles right here that landed back in Utah to be permanently housed. Yeah. No one pleads your cause to bind up. There are no healing medicines for you. Is anyone pleading the cause? Is anyone telling you to come home, to quit measuring that way, to quit serving that way, to quit lying, to quit falsely prophesying in his name? Who's telling us? All those loving you have forgotten you. They do not seek you, for I struck you as an enemy strikes with cruel chastisement, because your crookedness is great. Your sins have increased. Why do you cry about your breach? Your pain is incurable because of your many crookedness, because your sins have increased. I have done this to you. However, all those who devour you shall be devoured, and all your adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity. And those who exploit you shall be exploited, and all who prey upon you I shall make a prey. For I restore health to you and heal you of your wounds, declares Yahuwah. For they have called you an outcast, saying, this is how you heal the wounds. This is why the wound exists. Because everyone's saying, this is Zion. No one is seeking her. Thus said Yahuwah, see, I turn back the captivity of Jacob's tents and have compassion on his dwelling places. And the city shall be built upon its own mound, and the palace stand on its right place. Did that happen before? Was the palace built on a different mound? If Zion hadn't never been sought, well, what's going on? And out of them shall arise thanksgiving and the voice of those who are laughing. And I shall increase them, and they shall not diminish, and I shall esteem them, and they shall not be small. And his children shall be as before, and his congregation shall be established before me, and I shall punish all who oppress them. That's not happening, is it? There's no congregation of him over there. There's gay pride parades and Christmas trees and hexagrams and sexagrams and the Kabbalah tree and all that stuff. Yeah. Organs being stolen and sold, and skin banks and all kinds of nasty, vile stuff. Yeah. And it's all punishments. Is what it is. And his prince shall be from him, and his ruler shall come from among him, and I shall bring him near, and he shall approach me. Approach me. For who is this who pledged his heart to approach me, declares Yahuwah. Did those people declare their hearts? No, they're secular. Benjamin Netanyahu is secular. He don't even believe. And the founders, the creators of the Balfour Declaration of 1948, they were secular. And those people primarily are. And the ones that ain't are doing the nastiest stuff you'd ever see, along with the Christians. They bring the representation of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil into their house once a year. They can't wait to put it up. They hate to put it down. They love decorating it, dolling it all up, putting gifts under it. They don't care what the word says. They flip the Most High a bird. And then you got these Messianics that replaced it with Hanukkah just so they could keep that measuring tool of greedy gain out, because they didn't want to put it away. They found some friends in some Messianic congregations and stuff that didn't have Christmas trees, but they wanted to fit in, so they put the Christmas trees down, but they pulled the little whatever, the Hanukkah, out. They continue to eat their lamb on Passover. They don't care about none of that. And you shall be my people, and I shall be your mighty Most High. All that ain't his people. His people don't do that stuff. It's fact. It's just like that law of gravity. When you throw something up, it don't just keep going. It don't. It comes back down. You can't serve two masters. You can't serve that tree without being cursed. You can't have eyesight while you're blind. You can't see and think clearly if you're delusional and drunk. It's common sense. See, the storm of Yahuwah shall go forth in a rage, a whirling storm. It burst upon the head of the wrong. The burning displeasure of Yahuwah shall not turn back until he has done and established the purposes of his heart. In the latter days you shall understand it. That's how you know. Because who am I? You see this understanding, and it's only come from due diligence, rigorous reading and searching, seeking. And if there ain't no understanding in everything I just said, come prove me wrong. I bet you don't. I bet you don't. Even if you do think it's wrong, you ain't gonna. Because you don't want none. You don't want none of this smoke. I already know. But I can tell you, and if anyone who's hearing this actually does, they are here because they're seeking the Most High. They do seek him with all their heart. Kingdom matters is what's on their mind. They are rich towards the Most High. They're willing to go out in the field to be harvest workers. They will understand that there would be no way for me to understand this unless we were living in the latter days. We are in them latter days. It is time to come home and to sit on your throne and to put all that junk away and to live like those sparrows and those ravens today. Don't let this world, don't let Babylon bog you down. Don't stay on that boat. It's going down, and anyone on it is going to drown. I hope that helped you. I hope that this message gets out to anyone who needs to hear it today. Don't live a minute dwelling on what you don't have. Open your eyes and look around at all that you do have. I love you. I'm out.